Welcome to Value Education, Perspectives on Process, a series of conversations with administrators, teachers, and students about what is meaningful in education. My name is Valerie Feit, and I'm co-director of school counseling and K-12 Enrichment Coordinator in the Rye Neck District. I'm joined here today by a guest that I know you're going to want to meet. First, co-host of our show normally, but today a guest, Dylan Spencer, and Jonathan Marcuse, who is a guest, and also Owen Robertson, so welcome. To our audience, if you are concerned about climate change, you're going to want to hear this conversation. These young people are leaders at the vanguard of what is happening in our community and in our school. They're not the only ones working on this issue. We have AP Environmental Science, we have clubs that deal with climate issues, and we also have science classes and other ways that students are involved in all kinds of ways. But you're very unique in that you're not only collaborators together, but you also work individually in the community. So I'd like to start with a question, which is this. Some people say climate change or climate crisis is the issue of your generation. How do you feel about that?
I think the name holds true to the situation. I think that objectively, climate change or the climate crisis is objectively the most important and apparent issue amongst us. Personally, I think that I sort of indulged myself in working with and to improve climate change out of personal responsibility, be it advertisement in mass media or just within my community. I felt like I held a responsibility within myself to try to benefit my community and the effort as a whole. And I really think that individuals with that mindset together can cultivate change.
Very interesting. What about you, Jonathan?
Well, I think that it's very important to be involved in environmental activism as well as leadership, because for our generation and our future, there's nothing more important than solving the climate crisis. Everything depends on it, and at the moment, we haven't had enough momentum for change, and it is frightening for our future. So I do believe activism is really important as we spread awareness and we get many people on our side and on board. However, we actually need to come and create our own solutions and fill in leadership positions for ourselves to help foster positive environmental change in our communities and our world. And so personally, I'm very attached to this issue and love working with it. So.
Okay, thank you. And what about you, Owen?
I feel like climate change is such an important issue for not only us here, but our entire generation, because if we don't fight climate change, then we aren't going to secure the future for not only ourselves, but the generations that come after us. Mm-hmm. And what I'm particularly worried about is not having clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, or having any national parks or natural areas to really enjoy the beauty of the world.
So you're all naturals. I know you all go out and enjoy nature a lot. In that vein, you made an interesting point there, Jonathan, in a distinction between activism and leadership. So I'm wondering how you all see that. Like, how do you make that kind of distinction?
Yeah. So I think we're working towards a better worldly climate is twofold, and it requires two different parties as collaborators to sort of create the impact that they intend to. On one hand, you have activists. Those are people most notably similar to Greta Thunberg, people with the goal of spreading awareness as to create a population to then become leaders, right? Leaders are those who utilize those people, those resources that activists gather, and actually make change. There's people like Banslat whose implemented via ocean cleanups interceptor, this river pollution system, which takes plastic from rivers and prevents it from reaching the oceans. People like that, epitomizing that is somebody like Elon Musk, somebody who works more towards creating solutions with the resources that that activists gather.
Okay, very interesting. And your perception of that, do you make that distinction between activism and leadership?
Yes, I would say I would make the same distinction as Dylan in that it is very important to get people informed about the crisis at stake. And I mean, at this point, I don't think anyone should still believe that the climate change is a joke or a lie or anything. And I think everyone should refer to it as a climate crisis because it truly is. And I feel like Greta Thunberg, she started a massive movement where everyone is starting to be on board and spreading just so much awareness for the climate crisis. But however, there isn't enough action that has stemmed from that yet. And I feel that politics has kind of been conflicting with that, and that we need more leadership positions filled to help cultivate this change and help, especially in political parties, to actually make new environmental friendly policies that limit, it could be corporations or personal use of resources and any kind of burning of fossil fuels that are polluting our world today.
Mm-hmm. Owen, I know that you've been involved in both activism and leadership, so I'm going to just assume they're both important to you when I ask this question, but we'll get into the details later. But you've been involved in tools for change, action research, and in our community looking, for example, at water quality. Last year you did another project where you were looking at attitudes and perspectives in our community, and I believe that you found that people are more informed now than they have been in the past, but are less active. How do you look at the idea of apathy versus stimulating action from your standpoint?
Well, what we found last year is that due to the rise of information and the bad news associated with climate change, whether it be natural disasters or bad air quality or more recently the burning of the rainforest, I think people are seeing that these changes are occurring globally and are extremely large, and that they feel that it's rather impossible for one person to make a great deal of change, so they decide not to act at all. And they just feel so overwhelmed that they think that what they do doesn't matter because these problems are so big. And I think that this is probably like the worst mindset to have, because you have to believe that you are able to make change in your community, especially in your community, but also on a global scale. And that's what's so important, and that's what causes me to go out into my community and look for ways to change my surroundings.
So you've all done this. That's really the crux of it, which is that you've put a lot of effort behind these words. I want to have a conversation now about like some of the work that you've done. I understand that you all three collaborate on a really great project called ASAP Scraps. That is a composting project. Somebody want to just describe what is ASAP Scraps?
Yes, so ASAP Scraps is a compost pickup service. And we started this as a local service to homeowners in our community who would like to recycle their food scraps. And so the Village of Mamaroneck currently has a wonderful food scrapping program in place. And their center for all the food scraps is at the recycling center in the Village of Mamaroneck. However, they require individual homeowners to bring their own food scraps to the recycling center whenever their bins are full. So what we offer as a service is every Saturday morning, we take food scraps from these individual homeowners and we drive it to the recycling center. and that saves everyone the time of the trip and provides a significant convenience for them.
Okay, so people are clients of yours. So they're clients, right? They pay.
Yes.
So how does that model work? Can you just give us a
so
description?
we have a multitude of ways that we advertise our service. Owen can get into that in a bit. Once we have people contacting us, we first inquire as to whether or not they have a system in place, their own composting system. If they don't, we go out and deliver them a Village of Rye compost kit, which includes some composting rolls as well as two little buckets, one larger, one smaller. The smaller of which is for the kitchen. The larger acts as a sort of like a trash can. And so once that system has been put in place, we send an invoice to them, which is a $10 recurring monthly fee. This covers all of our expenses, including driving, so like gas money. This allows us to expand in terms of getting more bins. If a mishap happens, a bin breaks, we can insure it and repurchase it. And so with this, we've worked extensively on trying to sort of automate this process, make it really easy for our partners, as we like to call them, as well as us, as managers and as active school students. We have so much time, and we've been able to, in my opinion, successfully implement a pretty autonomous system that allows for super easy implementation of our system into new prospecting partners, as well as people who want to join our efforts. And that's been a really interesting experience for me. I know that all of us have really enjoyed helping the community, not only spreading information and informing people about what can be composted, what can't be, how they can help, but also being leaders in this, starting this movement.
Wow. So people contact you and they can say, like, for $10 a month, that's it? I'll get into that later. They can get a tremendous service, and you're going to come, like, what, every Saturday morning, and you're going to empty their bin into into tubs in your van or whatever, like your truck, and then take it over to
So we take the curbside bins. We put it in our friend Sonia Finkenberg's truck, who's been a massive help in this effort. And then we drive it out to the recycling center every Saturday morning at about 11 a.m. And another sort of side benefit of our process is that instead of those people driving to the recycling center themselves, we make one trip,
so that saves
thereby decreasing gas emissions.
That's fantastic. But I know there's more to it, so I'm going to kind of pull it out of Owen here. Owen, the $10 covers expenses, but you've also been doing something else with the money. I'm going to let you say.
Well, ASAP Scraps is a not-for-profit, and so what we do with the extra money that we don't use to pay for expenses like gas or for buying new bins, we donate to the Nature Conservancy, which is really special to us because the Nature Conservancy has done a lot of work in Westchester and has actually done work to preserve land here.
Wow. So for $10 a month, I can have my scraps picked up, I can learn how to recycle them, and I can also know that I'm making a donation to the Nature Conservancy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And
that's great.
in addition to that, we also offer free compostable bags to our clients. And so whenever they run out, we'll give them another roll of bags, and then they use that to scrap their food.
Wow, so this is like a total win-win here.
Yes.
But just a curiosity, why Nature Conservancy? There are so many groups. Why them?
Well, the Nature Conservancy was founded in Westchester, I believe, and they have actually conserved land in Mamaroneck. So what the Nature Conservancy basically does is they buy a bunch of land, and then they conserve it, and then on top of that, they're also involved in activist campaigns and They're one of the most well-known world organizations for positive environmental action and change. So that is why we chose them. However, we are in the future looking to possibly donate to local charities in our community for full, our community effort.
Wow. So I know that we're putting up your email. Is that the best way to reach you right now? If somebody watching our show wants to be a partner, they should just contact you by email and you'll put them on your website and that.
They do have to note that currently we're only limited to Village of Mamaroneck members and those within the Rye Neck School District border. However, we are in the process of expanding to the town of Mamaroneck as well as the as well as Larchmont.
So you're not only looking for clients or partners who might want to have their scraps picked up, but you're also looking for people who might have a means of transportation to help you expand.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes, we are actively looking for driver volunteers who would help us pick up our partners' compost. Again, we've put hours into making that a really automated service. We've devised the most efficient routes, given certain addresses as to save these drivers time, make it something that they can do on Saturday, and not have so much of a hassle involved. Be it something that they can do consistently, but not be something that's so taxing for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great. I just have one other question on this that I think probably is on the mind of some of our viewers as well, which is why focus on scraps? Why is it so important to compost?
Well, composting is super important because, for two reasons, really. Number one, when you throw out food and it is taken to a landfill, it breaks down very slowly. And this process releases a large amount of greenhouse gases, particularly methane. And so when food is composted instead of thrown away, this process is much faster and it releases less greenhouse gases during the process. Also, when food is thrown away, it creates a lot of polluted land, and the nutrients that are trapped in the food that could be used to fertilize plants, fertilize crops, or even your garden are just lost. And so when you compost your food scraps, it gets turned into compost, and then you can actually get this compost back for yourself. And so the nutrients that you provided actually come back to you, which I think is great.
So this is a really systemically important to all of us. But this is not even close to all that you do. So I just would like to go around and just quickly hear what else you do. This is the collaborative end of it. But individually, I don't even know where to go, who to start with. Why don't we start with you, Jonathan? Okay. You're right in front of me. Yes. Jonathan, tell us a little bit about your Eagle project and some of the engineering initiatives that you've been part of.
All right, so for my Eagle project, I started by taking data that I had collected from my science research project, which I can talk about later, and basically targeting an issue right around our school. So our school is surrounded by a swamp called Beaver Swamp, and in that area there's a body of water called Beaver Swamp Brook, and we found pollutants to be very high.
That was the two of you working together?
Yes,
science
so
research.
This was our science research project that Owen and I collaborated on, and last year for many weeks we would go out twice a day and take water samples, and from that we basically targeted an issue of a high level of pollutants, specifically phosphorus was the main one we were focusing on. And so I started my Eagle project by trying to come up with the best way to lower levels of phosphorus in the brook. So I had designed a rain garden, which is used to filter out rainwater runoff and before it's discharged into the swamp in the brook area. And it was supposed to be 40 feet long by 13 feet wide and about 3 feet deep. And in a severe rainstorm, it could filter out hundreds of gallons of water before it's discharged into the brook.
Wow. So that didn't work out in reality because of the issue of licensing or,
Yes.
or permits, I think.
I was not able to receive permits in time to carry out my project. I was told it might take up to 2 years. So I had to kind of double back and come up with a different approach for my Eagle project. And what I ended up doing is I started with a very intense trash pickup in the swamp, and we ended up covering about an area of 6 acres and taking out about 35 garbage bins of trash.
Yikes, I didn't realize it was that bad.
It was ridiculous. We didn't just find bottles and micro trash. We found rugs, traffic cones, huge metal pipes, and just such a multitude of things that shouldn't be there. But perhaps the main part of my project was building a 200-foot long nature trail right next to the school to be used as an outdoor classroom by science teachers. So we basically carved this trail and built 2 small bridge crossings across a mucky area where water flows. And now that trail has been used a few times by science teachers to kind of get students out into nature and involved with environmental science and the climate crisis issues. And almost it goes along with the idea of activism and spreading awareness.
That's fantastic. Owen, you've done a ton of things. I know you've sought out educational opportunities beyond our school, and you've also been very involved in our community in several studies. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so over the summers in between school years, I've attended multiple high school courses on climate change and on climate change mitigation, more specifically. And so these have been conducted in association with American University and New York University. And what we were focusing on is how to tackle climate change issues in general, whether it be locally or within a city. That's where I focused on with NYU, how New York City itself is combating climate change, or whether it be on a global scale, and combating issues that may have to do with governments or like the Amazon rainforest that are important to everybody.
And I understand that through the Tools for Change, which is at Rye Neck called Action Research, you were in 2 studies, 2 successive studies. Mm-hmm. Can you just sort of share both of them briefly?
Yeah. So in 10th grade, my first year with Action Research, which Dylan is actually also a part of, we conducted a survey in association with Westchester Joint Waterworks and with help from Nancy Seligson to assess the public's perceptions of water quality in response to a series of publishings that were meant to bring down people's confidence in tap water and convince people to buy filtration systems. And what we actually found is that people were very confident in their tap water, and actually through the reports that Westchester Joint Waterworks has published, we have some of the cleanest tap water in the country, which is just excellent.
Yeah, that's great. And the other study that you did last year, I think we spoke about briefly, but if you could just review that as well.
Yeah. So as we were talking about earlier, we updated a 10-year-old survey that was assessing the generational differences in climate change perception, and this study was done with help from the Tools for Change initiative with Dr. Tobin. And what we found out was that, as I said earlier, due to the present information on climate change, which is just so prevalent and it's just so disheartening to many people, although there's more information and more ways to fight it, people are just they feel helpless, essentially. Mm-hmm. And so they think that what they do means nothing. And so this is very disheartening to me, actually. And so what we did is actually our group presented our findings at the town board.
To the village council.
Yeah, to the village, to the board of trustees.
Yes.
In order to bring awareness to this issue.
And also the Lions Club also hosted us.
Yes, definitely.
I really appreciated what you said about apathy to action, because that's really the key message that you're all presenting. What about you, Dylan? You're involved in a whole bunch of ways as well.
So on the activist side, I'm a part of the Rye Neck's Environmental Awareness Club, which works to spread awareness about climate change, and we do trash pickups similar to that which Jonathan had mentioned. I'm a part of a program sponsored by the EPA, which works towards checking the health of wildlife within our local water bodies. I'm a part of ASAP Scraps, obviously, and plan on taking that over next year when these guys have graduated. I'm currently preparing a TED Talk, which I plan on presenting at the TEDx Rye Neck event.
March 20th for anyone who wants to come. March 20th is TEDx, yes. Focus on climate. So you're presenting there.
Yeah, specifically on the induction of climate change education into the core curriculum.
Wow. That's a tremendous amount of involvement from all of you. And I understand you all also, in addition to everything else, volunteer for Save the Sound. So you help collect data for the studies that they do. So that's another level. So you're involved in research, awareness, active involvement through ASAP Scraps, science research, all kinds of engineering things. It's just incredible. I appreciate all of you, and I'm sure that the whole community thanks you for your work. With all of that, are you hopeful?
I'm sort of mixed, because currently I feel that many people, especially in positions of power, are putting politics over the environment, which to me is very frustrating, because they fear the loss of an election or the loss of popularity among certain groups of voters that they feel is a bigger issue to them than the destruction of our climate, which to me it is very much the other way around. So I feel that it's going to be very important for people to realize the magnitude of this issue and to essentially change their priorities and prioritize the environment in the future.
In terms of like your hopefulness, I understand you are 9 days away from being a voter. Should people be paying more attention to you and your generation? Quickly, we're going to wrap, so just really quickly.
Okay, well, yes, I will be turning 18 very soon, and then I will be joining a huge community of voters. And I do believe that my age group is definitely the most focused on environmental issues and promoting positive climate policy. And I think that it's very important to not only listen to us, but kind of internalize what we're saying. And I feel that all other age groups have to also be informed and swayed to realize the magnitude of this crisis. And on top of that, just actively voting and really caring, I think, can bring change. And so, yes, I agree with Owen. I'm sometimes kind of mixed. However, when I see just in New York City 300,000 people come out for a climate strike, I am hopeful that one election will have a great turnout of people voting for those candidates who will represent how we feel about the environment.
I must say to our audience that this has been an incredibly inspiring conversation. I hope you've enjoyed it. But more than that, I hope you are listening to what these young people are saying and that you're going to participate and get involved and reach out to ASAP Scraps and start composting. And if you're already doing that, find something else that you can do, because we're all in this together. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to having you join us next time. This is Value Education.